A story that obviously will warrant more comment throughout the day. Now we return to what we call the top story this hour. It's a story that's been with us now for a long, long time, and it is the crisis in illegal immigration. President Obama, as you just heard from John, expected to ask Congress for $2 billion today to try and help stem the overflow at the border. Meanwhile, yesterday, a third group of illegals turned away from Murrieta, California. Here with the latest, Congressman Lamar, a Republican from Texas, chairman of the House Science Committee, and a member of the Judiciary Committee and also the Committee on Homeland Security. Lamar, we thank you for calling in this morning to America's Forum.
JD, always good to be with you and your listeners as well.
Lamar, you were the guy sounding the warning on illegal immigration a long, long time ago. But despite your warnings, it seems that things have gone from bad to worse. What's the latest on the international border in your home state of Texas?
You're certainly right. They have gone from bad to worse under this administration, simply because this administration either ignores immigration laws, undermines immigration laws, or tries to make up new laws through executive orders. Now, we've seen a problem develop, particularly on the Texas-Mexico border, where we have thousands and thousands of minors, sometimes accompanied by parents, sometimes not, streaming across the border. And they're all coming because of the president's policies. His policies created this flood of individuals coming across. By the way, it's 15 times the number expected this year as 4 years ago, so it's a huge problem. But the president doesn't seem to be willing to do anything about it. He just reversed himself in the last few hours. He was going to make it easier to have these individuals go back home, be reunited with their families. He's now reversed course and said he's not going to do that. You mentioned that he wants to spend $2 billion to try to fix the problem. And JD, if there's 100,000 minors in detention or being held somewhere, that comes out to $200,000 per person. I mean, for that amount of money, you could give them all a private flight back to their hometown and more. So it just doesn't make sense. But we'll see what the president has in mind. But the fact that he's already reversed course on making it easier to send these people home makes me really concerned that the president's just going to continue to push for mass amnesty.
So, Lamar, this vote that I would expect, later this week on the $2 billion appropriation, what do you expect to happen in that vote? Will House Republicans say no to the president on this $2 billion expenditure?
JD, we've heard from this president the words before that he wants to secure the border, but we never see his actions follow his words. In other words, his words, quite frankly, are hollow, and we just don't know whether we can trust him. If you go by his past actions, we cannot trust him when he says he wants to secure the border. So I think there's a lot of concern about supporting a package. We'll see what the president proposes. No doubt it'll be changed and strengthened, and I hope we'll be focused on securing the border, not making it easier for individuals to stay in the country. But again, you can never trust what the president says. He'll always say what he thinks the American people want to hear, but we just simply will have to scrutinize the language when we see it. We haven't seen it yet.
Well, Congressman, we know the president likes to use his pen and his phone to change existing law. There's many examples of that, but a lot of folks are saying that the president and Homeland Security's hands are tied somewhat with these minors because of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was signed first by President Bush and then reauthorized by President Obama. Is that due process argument valid in your opinion?
Well, it's partially valid, but the president said he wanted to change the law up until the last day, and then suddenly he's changed his mind and doesn't want to change the law. So what does he really mean, and what does he really stand for? 2 days ago, I want to make it easier to send these folks back home, and I'm going to suggest to change the law to the Congress, and now he says he's not going to. He basically is only going to do what the pro-amnesty folks want him to. They opposed his changing the law, so he's backed off of that. And he can still do more than he has right now. He can still have more Border Patrol agents. He can still secure the border a lot better than he's been doing. And the fact that he's not willing to move in other areas, again, makes me very suspicious that he really wants to secure the border and really wants these minors to return home.
So, Lamar, the question becomes the $2 billion. Will this be spent, in your view, if it gets through the House and the Senate? Will this president use that money just to expedite bringing in these illegals from Central America and getting them around the country? Will that be what the money is used for?
Yeah. See, that is exactly our concern. If a lot of this money simply goes to judges who are going to award asylum to these individuals and allow them to stay in the country, that's not something we favor. So once again, we don't know that we can believe the president. We don't know that we can trust the president. If you go by his past actions of not enforcing immigration laws, why should we suddenly think he's had a conversion and wants to enforce immigration laws or wants to remove individuals and send them back to their home countries when everything he's done as president has been the reverse? It's to allow them to stay. And, of course, it's that message that has attracted so many people and encouraged them to come across the border illegally because he doesn't enforce immigration laws. So once again, I think you'll see Congress make a lot of changes in whatever package he proposes, and then we'll have to see whether the Senate will go along with this or not. But I'm greatly skeptical of what the president is proposing.
Well, Lamar, yesterday, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest spoke out on the issue when he was meeting with reporters. And in much the same way Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson on Sunday television did, the press secretary gave a carefully worded answer about the future of, quote, unaccompanied children pouring in over the border and the possibilities of their deportation. Let's listen to Josh Earnest, and then, Lamar, we'd ask for your comments after we take a listen.
Bottom line, though, is that the law will be enforced. And what that means is it means that these children who have been apprehended will go through the immigration court process. And if they are found to not have a legal basis for remaining in this country, they'll be returned. It's unlikely that most of the kids who go through this process will not qualify. It's unlikely that most of the kids who go through this process will qualify for humanitarian relief, which is to say that most of them will not have a legal basis, will not be found through that court process to have a legal basis to remain in this country.
Lamar, you have formal training as a lawyer. Is that White House doublespeak?
Well, it certainly contradicts what I was told by the Secretary of Homeland Security face-to-face, in person, 2 weeks ago. And I pressed him and I said, what percentage of these minors are going to be sent home? And he said, quote unquote, a very small percentage. That contradicts completely what you just heard from the White House. So once again, they say one thing one day, something else another day. You can't believe what they say. That was legalese. He never committed that these individuals would be returned to their home and their families. And so once again, I think the White House cannot be expected to enforce the law.
Well, Congressman, obviously this problem is going to cost a lot of money. It's costing a lot of money already. If you are to vote in favor of the $2 billion the president is requesting, give us a couple conditions you think must absolutely be included in that appropriations bill.
Well, some of the ideas that have been talked about before we could support any new money would be, for instance, the law being changed, a commitment by the administration that the great majority of these folks would be returned home, more border security measures, more Border Patrol agents both at the border and in the interior, and a willingness to really stop all future illegal immigration. Now, I don't expect the White House to go along with that, but that would be some of the conditions that I'd like to see in that kind of an expense.
At least it's a starting point.
Lamar, something continuing on in California, in Murrieta, at the Border Patrol station yesterday, demonstrators forced a third group of buses with about 140 illegals on them to turn around. Now, this citizen reaction, the protests continue. Breitbart reports federal agents will be arriving in Murrieta in riot gear to quell the protesters. Have you heard anything about this? And in your mind, would this be a violation of legitimate First Amendment rights by citizens in opposition to this?
Right. Certainly, citizens have a First Amendment right to demonstrate, to speak out, to say what they want to. And I frankly think that what they're doing is basically saying the administration's policies have failed us. The administration's policies have caused this deluge of illegal folks coming across the border, and they're rightfully protesting the administration. We know from Border Patrol agents who did a poll of people coming into the country illegally that 95% say that they're coming into the country illegally because of the Obama's policies, because of the president's policies that seem to give them a free pass, and once they get here, they're going to get to stay. True or not, that's the message of the administration's policy. So you have a situation right now where the American people are speaking up, and all true reform, JD, comes from the voice of the people. When the people speak up, the administration will have to listen, Congress will have to listen, and the people are right. The administration is not enforcing the law, they're not securing the border, and they have no one to blame but themselves.
We'll have to leave it right there. Lamar Smith, we thank you from Washington, weighing in with your thoughts on this, and we look forward to speaking to you in the days ahead.
Thank you, JD.
So, John, Lamar tells us it's the voice of the people. We see the demonstrators in Murrieta, California. Your voice, your perspective on this issue, we'd love to have it. Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email, our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And don't forget Facebook. America's Forum continues.